Stop signs were yellow for 30 years. By 1954, red dye that wouldn't fade became available, and it all changed. In 2014, two research scientists living a 45-minute helicopter ride away found each other using a dating app in Antarctica. Tree rings grow wider when the weather is warm and wet. The hottest inhabited place in the world is Daulo, Ethiopia, with the average annual temperature 94 degrees Fahrenheit and summer highs of 116 degrees. The only letter that's not in the periodic table is J. A single strand of spaghetti is called a spaghetto, and one ravioli is a raviolo. A French exit is what they call leaving a party without telling anyone in English. In French, they call it to leave English style. You can burn around 100 calories per hour just standing and doing nothing. GPS is free to use, but it costs $2 million per day to make it work. The United Kingdom has more tornadoes per area than any other country in the world. Times Square was called Longacre Square until the New York Times headquarters moved here in 1904. The word kimono translates as a thing to wear. Ki means wear and mono means thing. Santa Claus received a pilot's license and airway maps from the U.S. government in 1927. They also promised runway lights will be on for him. The first band that performed live on all 7 continents was Metallica. On December 8, 2013, they played a show called Freeze 'Em All in Antarctica. A hole in the center of a spaghetti spoon exists not only to strain water, but also to measure a portion of spaghetti. That hole fits exactly 1 serving. If you grab a beverage in a glass bottle at the base, your drink will get warmer because of the body heat. That's why most of them have long necks. Carrying a bottle by the neck keeps your beverage chill. Besides, holding it that way is just easier. However, don't do this with your kids. The square-shaped spoon that goes with McFlurry helps to mix the ice cream toppings through the dessert. The spoon hooks directly into a machine and spins around. However, don't do this with your kids. Ever forgot which side your gas tank was on? That's what a small arrow or a triangle on your dashboard is for. If it points left, the gas tank door is on the left. If it points right, that's right, it's on the right. Alright? Padlocks that are used outside quickly get out of order because of the rain. See this little hole in the bottom? It's made for pouring engine oil inside. Do this, and the key will again turn in the lock without any difficulty. The small disc under the lid of plastic water and soda bottles creates a seal that keeps both liquid and carbonation inside. Without it, your soda would go flat pretty fast. Many doors have knobs made of brass because brass prevents the spread of germs. That little hole on the top of a lollipop stick is there to make it hard for the candy to come off of the stick. When the melted candy is poured into the mold, some of it will seep into the hole and harden. You keep banging the bottle of a glass ketchup jar, but nothing's coming out. Here's a little tip. Turn your ketchup bottle at an angle and tap on the middle of the neck. There's a myth that the colored rectangles have something to do with the ingredients of the toothpaste. But the color bars are there, in fact, to indicate to the machines where the package must be cut, folded, and sealed. Different color codes are used for different packaging machines. I like the other story better. When this putty first came out, it was intended as a wallpaper cleaner that removes soot from the open fireplace. But soon, vinyl wallpapers came out and the demand for the product dropped. Someone in the inventor's family read a newspaper article about making crafts using the cleaning putty. They tested it with some kids in the kindergarten, they loved it, and then the product was rebranded as the beloved Play-Doh. Now, their inventor was trying to create a very strong, long-lasting adhesive. but ended up with a low-tack glue instead. While trying to promote his invention without success, his colleagues suggested using it to temporarily stick bookmarks in his books. And bingo, Post-it notes appeared. The yellow color occurred coincidentally because the lab next to them only had yellow scrap paper. Hey, why not a golf bag? You have to tee off anyway. Yeah, that's a stretch. When the beverage was first commercialized, the tea was placed in hand-sewn fabric bags. In 1908, a tea and coffee importer from New York shipped his silk tea bags around the world. To enjoy the beverage, customers had to remove the tea leaves from the bags. But they were unaware of this and started brewing the tea in the silver bags. They loved it so much that it became the norm, and everyone enjoyed tea this way. It took another 20 years for the first tea bag machine to come out, though. Placed in the dishwasher, mugs are supposed to be upside down. Cleaning water starts spraying on top and below them to make them shine. A manufacturing company saw that when people took the mugs out of the dishwater, water would accumulate on the top and drip all over them. So they came up with a tiny groove on the side to allow water to escape. 21 out of the 25 most venomous snakes in the world just happen to live in Australia. Australia's saltwater crocodiles are the largest reptiles in the world, growing up to 20 feet long. That's half as long as a school bus. They're also some of the oldest, appearing over 240 million years ago. Crocs like living in Australia's murky swamp waters and can hold their breath for up to an hour. So, if you're walking along the water's edge and don't see a crocodile, that doesn't mean it isn't there. As huge as they are, crocs can swim up to 20 miles per hour. So forget about outswimming one. They have special valves in their mouths that keep water from flooding in, so they can quickly swim a long way without coming up for air. Another unique reptile found in Australia is the thorny dragon. It's a small lizard whose entire body is covered in, you guessed it, raised thorny skin. This is its defense against predators. Don't worry, buddy, I wouldn't want to take a bite. Australia is home to about 2,400 species of spiders. Not all of them are venomous, but some are extremely dangerous, like the Sydney funnel web spider. It's the country's most venomous, with a bite that causes damage to internal organs and major body tissues. The antidote was made widely available in 1981, so as long as you get to the hospital ASAP, you'll be fine. Let's not forget about local sea life. Australia's oceans boast 4,000 different kinds of fish and 1,700 species of coral. It's home to the famous Great Barrier Reef, after all. Lots of different sharks, stingrays, turtles, and dolphins can be found in Australia's oceans too. With all that biodiversity, this place is a hotspot for divers. There are also some pretty weird alien-like creatures in Australia's oceans. Fireworms with their short stinging tentacles and sea urchins that have strange and sometimes poisonous colorful spines. The ancient Romans were known for their surprisingly advanced sewage systems. Public latrines became places to socialize with others, which seems pretty bizarre when you think about it today. The forerunner to the modern flush toilet was invented in 1596 by Sir John Harington, Queen Elizabeth I's godson. The design had a 2-foot-deep oval bowl that was rinsed clean by water rushing from a cistern above. In the 1860s and 70s, Parisians could do their business without leaving the street. There were more than 1,200 open-air bathrooms around the city. Some of them were so pretty, they were considered works of art. You can still find the last of them on Boulevard Arago. In the 1880s, British manufacturer Thomas William Twyford introduced the first all-ceramic freestanding toilet. Back then, the bowls could be intricately designed and painted, not like the smooth, stark white ones we have today. There are more than 24 time zones in the world, which means that not all of them are exactly 1 hour apart from each other. And that's true. Many time zones have only a 30 or 45-minute difference from the neighboring ones. Remember to tell me in the comments below about the time zone you live in. Despite a popular misconception, when you lose weight, your fat cells don't just disappear into thin air. Nope, they just become smaller. And vice versa. When you gain some additional pounds, your fat cells grow in size. The mimic octopus has a perfect defense system. It can not only change its color, but also take the shapes of other animals, for example, flounders, sea snakes, or lionfish. If you decided to save a few bucks by charging your smartphone less often, let me disappoint you. To charge a cell phone, you need teeny amounts of electricity. That's why the maximum amount of money you can save within a year is less than $1. The world's population is constantly growing, and a lot of people find it a bit concerning. But what if I tell you that all those 7.5 billion people living on Earth right now stood shoulder to shoulder, they would occupy just 500 square miles, which is the same as the territory of Los Angeles. Now this huge number sounds more manageable, right? McDonald's once created bubblegum-flavored broccoli to encourage kids to eat more healthily. Sadly, the experiment didn't end successfully. Child testers were terribly confused by the taste. The weird broccoli was a failure. Couldn't see that coming, huh? The microbes living inside humans turn out to be way more diverse than researchers previously thought. And what's even worse, almost 99% of them are unknown to science. Well, that's disturbing. A mouse's bones are so flexible, it can fit into a ballpoint pen-sized hole. If you cage one, make sure the grid is small enough. The most popular language in the world is not English, and by far. The title belongs to Mandarin Chinese, with over 1 billion speakers around the globe. The record for the longest-lasting hiccups belongs to a man named Charles Osborne. He had this condition for 69 years straight. Human fingers are extremely sensitive as an evolutionary perk. If your fingertips were the size of Earth, you'd feel the difference between a one-story house and a car. China is home to the most bicycles in the world. However, the most bike-friendly city is Copenhagen in Denmark. A giraffe's tongue is so long, the animal can clean its own ears with it, which it does every so often. I am jealous. A hummingbird's heart beats at an average rate of 1,200 beats per minute. That's 20 beats per second. Only about 86% of the world's adult population can read, and is considered a huge leap forward compared to half a century ago. Lobsters, due to their cold-blooded nature, can come back to life after being frozen and thawed again. And they are delicious. Just saying. Prairie dogs kiss each other to say hi. Aww. Facebook can qualify as a country of its own. Today, there are over 2 billion people using it, which is more than the population of the US, China, and Brazil combined. Africa is a challenger, though. By 2050, it's estimated to grow to 2.3 billion people living there. During a flight on an airplane, our sense of smell and taste is 20 to 50% lower than usual. That's why the food on board doesn't seem delicious. Sonic the Hedgehog was put in the Guinness Book of Records for being the fastest video game character of all time. After all, he runs faster than the speed of light. Our noses can detect more than 1 trillion smells. Sounds impressive, but a dog's sniffer can detect 10,000 times more than that. While humans can smell if there's a teaspoon of sugar in their coffee, a dog can smell a teaspoon of sugar in 1 million gallons of water. Goats were the first to discover coffee's energizing effects. They started feeding on coffee beans and got hyperactive for the rest of the day. The goat owner noticed this and spread the word. The average person will grow almost 600 miles of hair over a lifetime. That says twice as long as the atmosphere is thick. 2 billion pencils are manufactured every year in the US alone. If you laid them all on the ground end to end, they'd circle the Earth's equator 9 times. And each of those pencils can write 45,000 words and draw a line that's over 30 miles long. The difference between mass and weight is that your mass is always the same, but your weight changes depending on your location. So, if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you'd only be 38 pounds on Mars. Have you ever thrown an apple in a river and seen it float? That's because it's 23% air. In the 1800s, cowboys used to wear their watches on chains. To keep them protected, a brand introduced the tiny little pockets we have on our jeans today. Peanuts aren't nuts. They belong to the botanical family of Fabaceae, which are legumes. Mars' daytime sky is dusty red, and its dusks are a beautiful shade of blue. Martians themselves are little and green. The founders of Portland both wanted to name it after their hometowns. They decided to flip a coin, and if it landed the other way around, the city would be named Boston. The shortest war ever lasted only 38 minutes. There's a lesson here somewhere. According to some studies, dogs can easily smell a specific scent that cancer produces in a person. Cats have two separate sets of vocal cords. They use one of them for purring and another one for meowing, just like narrators. The Apollo astronauts who got to fly to the moon had to go through U.S. Customs after they got back. Yeah, it was a joke. Those funny NASA guys. Sweat itself doesn't have any odor at all. It's the bacteria on your skin that breaks it down and causes it to smell bad. Barbie doll's full name is Barbara Millicent Roberts. So she's really Barbie Millie Bob. The Twitter logo bird also has a name, Larry. It was named after Larry Bird, a former NBA player who used to play for one of the Twitter co-founders' home state team. A British study stated that on average, children ask about 300 questions, or one question every 2.5 minutes every day. It is possible to sneeze with your eyes open. It's just that most of the time, your blinking instinct naturally kicks in. Yeah, I've sprayed my windshield a few times myself. If you keep a goldfish in a dark room, it'll eventually become a bit paler. There are more fake flamingos in the world than real ones. Most of them vacation in Miami. Contagious yawning can occur if you hear, see, or even think about yawning. And it's not only humans who are affected by it, chimpanzees experience this too. So does my dog. The largest thing ever captured in a photo was a black hole, which happened in 2019. But the smallest thing ever photographed was the shadow of an atom. Speaking of giants, the largest living tree on Earth with just one stem is a sequoia tree called General Sherman. It's 275 feet tall. It's almost as tall as the Statue of Liberty. While we're on the topic, hundreds of years ago, people chewed on tree bark to relieve discomfort. Willow bark has a lot of salicin that transforms to salicylic acid when we eat it. That is an ingredient used in aspirin today. The world's largest marsupials are red kangaroos. They can grow up to 6 feet in height, and they never stop growing until they pass away. There are 93 million selfies taken every day. Yet, if you were to have your picture taken by the first camera in history, you'd have to sit still for 8 hours. Excuse me, can I scratch? No? Darn. Around 2,500 decommissioned train cars were sunk in the Atlantic Ocean to build artificial reefs for fish and crustaceans. Physicist Victor Franz Hess used the subway as his lab to run his experiments. He picked the deepest station in the system, which was the one at 190th Street in Manhattan. It takes around 864 bees to fill a standard 340-gram jar of honey, and around 12 bees to make a teaspoon for our tea. The word barbarian was used to refer to people who didn't speak Greek. Individuals who had a different language sounded like they were saying bar, thus barbarians. The most expensive substance in the world is antimatter. It costs around $25 billion per gram. Yet antihydrogen would cost $62.5 trillion per gram to produce.